Okay, so we're at the bottom of Yud Aleph on Beis 11b, and what we looked at yesterday is the Gemara telling us that Miriam was the wife of Kalev. She had more than one name, and the names are Miriam, Azuva, Ephrat, and Yeriot. And we looked at the verses that we're about to analyze now, the verses in Divrei Hayamim, the book of Chronicles, which describes the genealogy of the family of Kalev. And we looked at the way the simple reading of the verse is. And then we're going to now see, we also outlined how the Gemara is going to read that verse. Now we're going to see how the Gemara does that. So that's right over here at the third line from the bottom of the page. So it quotes the verse in Divrei Hayamim, which reads, the Kalev ben Chetzron, Kalev, son of Chetzron, Hoylid es Azuva Isha. I'm going to read it the way we learned it from Rashi there, the simple reading of the verse. So Chetzron, Kalev, son of Chetzron, gave birth to a woman named Azuva Isha. Her daughter's name was Azuva Isha, the word Isha being part of her name, and Yeriot, the Etz Yeriot. The Elabanan, these are her daughters, her sons, Yesher, Shevav, Arda. So that's the simple reading in the Mishnah. That's talking about 3 generations. Kalev, actually 4 generations. Kalev, son of Chetzron, that's 2 generations. Chetzron and Kalev. And then Kalev gave birth to Azuva Isha and Yeriot. And their children are Yesher, Shevav, and Arda. As we're going to learn, the Gemara is going to understand it a little differently, and as we talked a little about yesterday. And the main difference is the Gemara is going to take this word Isha, not to be part of her name, Azuva Isha, rather meaning Azuva, his wife, which would then read, Kalev, son of Chetzron, gave birth through his wife, Azuva, who is also Yerios, and then the next verse actually says the actual names. So let's begin the Gemara's analysis of this verse one by one, analyzing each person, each generation in this verse. So the first is Kalev's father. Right? The verse introduces Kalev by saying, Kalev, son of Chetzron. The Gemara asks, Ben Chetzron, is it correct to say that Kalev is the son of Chetzron? But seemingly, the verse so this is the book of Chronicles, Divrei Hayamim, but in the Chumash, in Bamidbar, the verse says, Ben Yefunah, son of Yefunah. So is his father's name Chetzron, or his father's name Yefunah? Which one is it? So says the Gemara, okay, the name of the father is Chetzron, but the word Yefunah, which is what the verse refers to in Bamidbar, is a description. We've had this in the past in the Gemara, where son of something is actually a description of the person. So for example, we said, Rabba bar Chana, Rabba, son of Bar Chana, which if you translate it quite literally, it would be Rabba, son of Chana. But it's more accurately translated to mean Rabba, son of the gracious one. Chana being gracious, coming from the word chen, graciousness. So oftentimes, or for example, you have the word bar mitzvah. Bar mitzvah literally translates as son of mitzvah. But it's not to say that this kid now is a son of a mitzvah. Rather, this child is now obligated in mitzvahs. So son of mitzvah is actually a description rather than describing who the parent is. So likewise here, when we say you call Kalev ben Yefunah, son of Yefunah, it's not a title, it's not a name of the father, but rather a description of Kalev himself. Kalev is one who is a Yefunah. What does Yefunah mean? So explains the Gemara. Who this is, ben, a person, son of, shepana, that stayed away. Pana means turned away. Me'atzas meraglim, from the scheme of the spies. Kalev and Yehoshua are the two out of the 12 spies who did not give a negative report of Israel. Right? The 10 spies came back giving a report of Israel. It's impossible to conquer. It's too big. It's too large. We can't do it. We shouldn't go. Whereas Kalev and Yeshua did not say such a thing. They said, this is God's land and we're promised it and we have to take it. So in his name, Ben Yefunah, we have a description of him being that which is Pana, the one who turned away from his cohort who had a negative report to say. Okay, so now we've dealt with the name Ben Yefunah. right? So the book of Chronicles says Kalev ben Chetzron, Kalev son of Chetzron. The book by Midbar, the book in Deuteronomy says Ben Yefunah, son of Yefunah. And we've explained that Ben Yefunah is a description of Kalev, that he's a person who turned away from the spies, from the scheme of the spies. But the Gemara asks, Vakati, but nonetheless, we're still stuck with the question. Because elsewhere, there is a third name for Kalev's father, Ben, son of, namely Ben Kenaz, son of Kenaz. The Ksiv, as the verse reads, this is in Shoftim, in the book of Judges. Vayilkadeh Osniel ben Kenaz. So it refers to Osniel, son of Kenaz, Ache Kalev, who's the brother of Kalev. So Osniel is the brother of Kalev, and Osniel's father is Kenaz, which would mean that Kalev's father is Kenaz. So which one is it now? We know it's not Yefunah. His father's name is not Yefunah because
Be
Yefunah
half brother.
Oh, that's the Gemara's answer. That's the Gemara's answer. But before the Gemara gets to that, the Gemara is stuck with this question, right? We have three descriptions of the father of Kalev. Chetzron, that's the actual name in the book of Chronicles. Ben Yefunah, son of Yefunah, that's a description that he turned away from his group, the spies. And now son of Kenaz, but as you correctly point out, it doesn't say that Kalev is a son of Kenaz. It says that Kalev's brother, Osniel, is a son of Kenaz. And therefore the Gemara says, Amarava, Churga de Kenaz Hava. He was the stepson of Kenaz. So his father was Chetzron. His father, I suppose, died, or at least divorced from his mother. And then his mother remarried, I would imagine died, because otherwise it wouldn't be like a really stepson. So his father, Chetzron, died. His mother, who at the moment doesn't have a name yet, she remarried Kenaz, and Kenaz and Kalev's mother gave birth to Osniel. So Kalev and Osniel are now stepbrothers. So we're getting more of a picture of Kalev's family. Father Chetzron, stepfather Kenaz, half-brother Osniel. Okay. The Gemara then continues, top of the page, of Yud Beis Amud Aleph, 12a. Dekanami, this indeed, to understand that this verse, that Kalev's relationship with Kenaz is not an actual son, father-son, or rather stepson, stepfather, is precise in the reading of a different verse. Iksiv, because the verse reads in the book of Joshua, the book of Yeshua, describing Kalev, son of Yefunah, it says there, Haknizi, the Knizi. Right? So the verse reads, I don't know if you could see it in the left here. Kalev ben Yefunah, Kalev, son of Yefunah, Haknizi, the Knizi. So it separates between son of Yefunah, which we already said is not a name, but a description of him turning away from the tribes, but then it refers to him as the Knizi, as opposed to saying son of Kenaz. The Knizi means he is a member of the Knizi household, but not the son of. So how is he the member of the household, not the son of? Because he's a stepson. So the verse refers to him as member of the Knizi clan, or member of the Knizi household, without referring to him as the son of Knizi, or the son of Kenaz, thus implying that he is a stepson rather than an actual son. And the Gemara says, Shmamina, indeed, we can derive from here. Okay, so we've painted the picture of Kalev's family prior to marriage. Father Chetzron, he is a kind of person who turns away from the evil or negative impact of his surroundings, the spies, and his stepfather is Kenaz, and half-brother is Osniel. Okay. Now let's go to his wife. We've already established that Azuva, who is described as Kalev's wife, right, in the book of Chronicles, we saw this yesterday, verse 19, and Azuba died, and Kalev took for himself Ephrat, and she bore him Chur. So Azuva, who died, is Kalev's wife, and that's why he marries Ephrat. Now, we've already learned from Rashi in the Gemara that Ephrat and Azuva are the same woman, which is also Miriam. And the reason why it says she died, and not that they actually died, but that she contracted tzarat, she contracted skin discoloration as a result of spiritual affliction, right, the tzarat, and that's a kind of death. And then when she was purified, he remarries her. But it's the same woman, different names, Azuva, Ephrat, and the same thing is Miriam. So we know Azuva is Kalev's wife, and we learned earlier that this is Miriam. Okay.
So
Sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
Azuba and Ephrath are the same, one and the same?
Correct. Even though the verse
Because
says yes.
the literal verse, the verse seems to suggest that they're two different people.
Yes. Correct.
Just it's the way it's structured.
Yeah. So as you can see from the verse here, there's the Gemara switches it quite a bit around, right? The way the simple verse is that Azuva Isha is actually his daughter. And as Rashi tells us here, because he had a wife named Azuva, he named his daughter Azuva Isha. But the Gemara is going to understand the word Isha as his wife, meaning to say, and Caleb, the son of Chetzron, begot of his wife Azuba, right? As opposed to begot a woman named Azuba Isha, right? So there's a few things we're changing around here, including this idea that Azuba and Ephrath are two different women. The Gemara says it as it's one woman. So you are correct in that we're changing the literal meaning, or the more simple reading of the Gemara, of the verse. Okay, so let's see then. So the Gemara says, okay, Azuva Zu Miriam. Azuva is Miriam. This woman Azuba is Miriam, which is Kalev's wife. Okay, so her actual name is Miriam. That's how she's referred to throughout the Chumash, and in the book of Exodus and going forward, she's referred to as Miriam. Only later, in the book of Chronicles, we refer to her as Azuva. So, V'lo Manikra Shema Azuva. Why is she actually called Azuva? And this gets to something Alan said yesterday. Why? V'lo Manikra Shema Azuva. Why was she referred to as Azuva? Because Shakol Azavua Mitchila. Because to begin with, everybody stayed away from her. Because apparently, she was not a very good-looking woman. She was very pale. As Rashi tells us, she was pale. She looked sickly. As we're going to see in a moment, the other name that she has, which is Yiriyos, and Rashi introduces us to another name, which is Chayla'a, the one who is sickly. So we have another name now, which is Miriam, Azuva, Ephrat, Yiriyos, and Chayla'a. Chayla'a means sickly. Azuva means men abandoned her. No one wanted to marry her because she was sickly. And we're going to see in a moment, Yiriyos also implies that she was sickly. That's why she was called Azuva. So if like you said yesterday, Alan, that you felt bad for Miriam, now you have another reason. Apparently, men didn't want to marry her because she was too sickly. But this gives us more insight into Kalev's maturity, if you will, his greatness, and he's able to see through her physical appearance and see her great personality, her great character, because she's a prophetess. She's the girl who prophesied her brother's birth and her brother Moshe being the future leader of the Jewish people. She's the one who is, because of her self-sacrifice to bring Jewish babies into the world during the time of the persecution of Pharaoh, she's merited to have grandchildren who is King David, right? So she's an amazing, incredible woman, but her physical appearance wasn't such. And it took a man like Kalev to see through that. And that's why she's referred to as Azuva, because she's the woman who nobody else wanted to marry. Azuva meaning the abandoned one. Now the verse goes on to say, right, so let's go back to the verse here. Kalev ben Chetzron, Kalev son of Chetzron, Hoylid es Azuva Isha, gave birth through Azuva, his wife. That's how we're learning it, rather than the way the simple reading is. Now, obviously, the word Hoylid, which means gave birth, sounds like Kalev himself gave birth to his wife, Azuva, which isn't the correct way. So I translated it as he gave birth through his wife, Azuva. But that's not really how the verse reads. The verse actually reads, he gave birth to Azuva, which is a strange language. And that's what the Gemara is about to address. The verse reads, Hoylid, that Kalev gave birth to his wife, Azuva. And the Gemara asks, he was married to her. So what does this mean, he gave birth to her? Why is the verse phrasing it in such an awkward way that he gave birth through his wife Azuva? He should say he married his wife Azuva and then she gave birth. Why such an awkward language, which almost sounds like he gave birth to his own wife? So says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, Kol anoisa isha l'shem shamayim. Anyone who marries a woman for the sake of heaven, as Kalev did, he did not do it for his physical urges because, as we just described, she was not that appealing physically. So his marriage to her was truly for the sake of what's right and proper, for the sake of heaven. And a man who has the capacity to look beyond the biology, not just look beyond the biology of his wife, but look beyond, dig deeper than his own biological urges. And marry for, yes? Yes,
You listening?
Yes, I'm listening.
It's funny that she was born ugly,
Mm-hmm.
and then she got beautiful later on.
We don't know yet that she got beautiful later on.
Yeah.
We don't know yet. We haven't yet seen that yet.
Okay. All right.
But here we're saying this is a beautiful thing that Rabbi Yochanan is saying that it's interesting actually that Rabbi Yochanan himself, I don't know if you remember, he's the one who's very good looking. But anyway, he says that any man who marries a woman for the sake of heaven, as Kalev just did, he married not for his biological urge, because she wasn't that good looking. He married for the sake of heaven. He married for her spiritual greatness. He married because this is the right thing to do. Then Ma'ila Lava Kosov, the verse considers it Ki'ilu Yolda, as if he gave birth to her. What's the virtue of that? What's the virtue of as if he gave birth to his wife? Why is that such a virtuous thing? So perhaps it's something like this. When he...
Well, it said, perhaps, I'm sorry, but perhaps maybe no one else, because the verse said prior, or the Gemara said prior, that one would have married her.
That's right.
It's as if she's not born.
Exactly. So that's right. Because no one, in other words, like this, when we see the good in others, we bring the good out in others. So if a person is on the exterior not appealing, but if we see that person's appealing nature, then that person's appealing nature actually comes forth, and it's as if they're being born now, right? Or something like that. You know, if it says something about marriage, right? I want to preface this, that in halacha, Jewish law is that actually the only requirement before you marry a woman is that you have to be physically attracted to her. This is one of the, as far as I know, the only halacha. And you have to see the woman. If I remember correctly from Rambam, this is the halacha. Because it doesn't say that you have to know her personality before you get married. Because personalities will grow on you. But if a person's not physically attracted to his wife, then it's a disaster of a marriage. He's not going to be attracted to her. This is not happy, not good for her, not good for him, right? I just want to put that out there. But obviously, someone at the level of Kalev has the ability to transcend that. Now, for us who maybe don't have the ability to transcend that, because we are physical people with biological urges and biological needs, and if we ignore that, we're just lying to ourselves. But nonetheless, we still could, we can still see beyond. It shouldn't just be that, right? It should still be we're marrying for the sake of heaven, even if it starts out. Even if when we start out, look, I'm attracted to my wife because I like the way she's appealing to me. But nonetheless, I should grow to the point where I can look past that and see that which is deeper and the marriage should become for the sake of heaven. And if that's the case, then it's as if I gave birth to her in the sense that I have the ability to bring about, because I see the best in her, I have the ability to bring out the best in her. Unless it's like, being born. And this is true of, like I mentioned before, it's true of everybody, like, educators or parents. When you see the positive in children, the positivity comes out. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. When parents or educators tell children, oh my gosh, you always forget your work. If you keep on repeating to the child, you always forget your work, it's going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy, and the child will always forget the work. But if you're constantly saying the good, wow, I love how you, sat down on time and sat down and listened when I told you to listen. And you keep on repeating that, then you bring about that good character, right? So there's a spiritual birth in seeing the positive in others. And between husband and wife, it's the deepest, because the husband and wife see each other on the deepest level. And if we see each other for the sake of heaven, then we are giving birth to each other spiritually, because we're bringing about the best within us. So it's quite something. Kalev had this ability. Okay, we'll do one more line. So the verse we read, Kalev son of Chetzron, Hoylid es azuva isha, he gave birth to his wife Azuvah, which we just explained. Gave birth means that he brought out the best in her, because he married her for the sake of heaven rather than marrying her for her physical appearance. The Es Yiriyos, and she too is Yiriyos. So this is the other name that the verse refers to Miriam / Azuvah / Yiriyot. And then the next verse refers to as Ephrat. So why was she called Yiriyot? Yiriyot means curtains. So why was she referred to as Yiriyot, says the Gemara? Yiriyos, she's referred to as Yiriyos, which means curtains, because Shahaya Panah Daimon Yiriyos. Her face was as pale as curtains. Right? So here's again the interesting metaphor. Curtain conceals that which is behind it. Yiriyos, she's called Yiriyos as if to say her external appearance, her curtain was pale, but if you pull back the curtain, you see a beautiful woman. This is perhaps a deeper level of what the Gemara means here, in line with what we're talking about here. Her face was Yiriyos, her face was a curtain, and pale, and therefore not appealing on the exterior. But if you peel back the curtain, you see a beautiful woman, and you can bore her out, as the Gemara refers to earlier, which connects actually to a custom that we do till today. Right? Our custom is that the bride, the kala, comes to the chuppah with a veil. And in many communities, especially in Chabad as well, the custom is that actually the chassan, the groom, puts the veil on the kala. She covers his face. He covers her face. There's many reasons for this. And one of the reasons why he puts a veil on is to say, I'm putting on a veil when I marry you because I want you to know that I'm marrying you for you and not because of your external appearance. That's one of the meanings of the veil at the chuppah. I'm covering your face because I'm not marrying you for your external experience. I'm marrying you for your internal experience. And this falls in line with this notion that Miriam herself was called Yiriyos. Miriam herself was called the veil, as if to say her external appearance completely concealed the truth of who she beautifully is on the inside. And Kalev, being able to see past the curtain, past the Yiriyos, past the veil, he was able to bring out in her the best, and thus merited to this beautiful marriage. So, God willing, more on this discussion on after Shabbos. We're going to talk a little bit about Kalev and his names, because Kalev himself had more names. We talked about Miriam and the various different names she had. There's still more names to come for her. We didn't talk about Ephrat. We didn't talk about the name Chayla'a and more names. But before that, we're going to get to some of Kalev's other names besides for the word name Kalev. A good Chodesh Tov, and a wonderful Erev Shabbos. A good day, everybody.
Thank you. Good Kodesh.
You too.
Shabbos.